I think if we're honest, the majority of educational approaches and mental health approaches were designed and developed with the needs of the wealthy elite, or about 5% of the global population's needs in mind. Most of the poor in the world don't have access to either education or to competent mental health care. And when they do encounter them, they're often faced with models that were developed for the wealthy, and that those are applied to those coming from poverty. And that's not always really a great fit. I'm really interested in the book that you're reading about from Ignacio Martin Barro, and one of my favorite quotes from there that you'll hear multiple times is sort of a challenge for the field. He says, "What is needed is for our most basic assumptions in psychological thought to be revised from the bottom up. But this revision cannot be made from our offices. It has to come from a praxis that is committed to the people." You know, I wonder what that would look like if we really developed educational approaches, sort of what Freire talked more about, or mental health approaches, which Ignacio Martin Barro has been was part of developing. What would that actually look like? I think it would be vastly different from what we do right now. I think it's going to be a tough sell because both education and the mental health approaches are largely centered around how to make money. And so it's not economically advantageous to develop models for the poor. You know, I was thinking about this morning, and I came up with a list of 5 things that I would do if I wanted to become super wealthy, and that I'd recommend to you if you want to become successful and wealthy. One would be to memorize the DSM and then the appropriate expensive drugs that go with treating the symptom, the symptom that probably makes sense in some sort of social context. 2, I would work mainly with wealthy clients and or students. I would take myself very seriously and know without question what I'm doing, because people are rewarded for pretending to know everything. I would define professionalism and success as having the ability to dress in expensive clothes and to have a very fancy office. And then 5, I would assume that those in poverty have nothing to teach you, that God must have just liked you better, or that you have the wealth that you have in your life because of all of your hard work. Don't ever tune into sort of the social context that maybe led to you having wealth. And really honestly, if you pay attention to the world around you, academia, mental health field, those who do those things are rewarded. They'll be promoted, and you know, everyone who I know who doesn't do those things has some problems. Many of the critical educators that I am familiar with have been fired at one point or another for sort of questioning the economic and nature of our fields, education and mental health, or critiquing some of the ways that we go about it. But if we take Ignacio Martin Barro's challenge seriously, I think we will also be rewarded, but just in a different way. Still, I'm not always consistent. I don't always know what's the next step we should take. But what I do think is that that there's a possibility of doing something different, and that we can be part of this process. And I'd be really curious to know what you all think, and I hope that you will be part of meeting Ignacio Martin Barro's challenge.
I once taught at a university, Miami University of Ohio. That was a university that was called a public Ivy League university. And I worked with students from very affluent backgrounds for 8 years. And then I was recruited to UCLA. And my students at Miami of Ohio said to me, "Peter, you're going to be speaking to the converted at UCLA. But here at Miami of Ohio, you need to work with the students from the affluent ruling class families. And you need somehow to teach the students how to commit class suicide, how in fact to identify with the poor and to work alongside the poor." And they said, "We need you more here than UCLA needs you in California." And so the question becomes, can a ruling class student or individual practice critical pedagogy without first committing class suicide and identifying wholly and completely with the poor and the oppressed.
I worked as a school administrator for about 2 years in a large elementary school in South Central Los Angeles, and I was responsible for administering close to $1 million to help improve the school. Now I decided to go against some of the ideas that the administration had about improving education for a very poor, marginalized school population. And I aligned myself with a group of women, and together we attempted to change the kinds of practices that were in place in the school. So I participated in protests, I helped them organize town hall meetings, phone the media, get more interest in some of the terrible things that were happening in the school. And by the end of my tenure, I was referred to as a lame duck in the institution, and my contract was not renewed, so I left. So my question is, given that critical pedagogy requires a commitment to working with marginalized and the oppressed populations, how do you see yourselves coming from positions of dominant status and hierarchies that exist in schools? How do you negotiate those tensions that emerge when you shift positions to aligning yourself and dedicating your work to the oppressed and the marginalized populations in those